one. Hello and welcome back to Breaking Ground on iPropertyRadio with myself, Carol Tallon, the show where we chat to industry experts to get a view on new trends emerging within the construction industry. And the show is brought to you in partnership with Place Engage, a data-driven platform for more successful public consultation and community engagement for your next development project. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Gizem. Gizem, I'm so sorry. I'm going to get you to say the name of your business.
Yes, it's Gizem Akdogan Kokosis is my name.
And the business?
Yes, it's Gizem Akdogan Interior Design.
Fantastic, Gizem. Thank you so much. So, Gizem, you're a registered architect in Turkey and trained in Istanbul Technical University and in Iowa State University in the US.
Yes.
So, you've been in Galway for the last 4 years. What brought you to Galway?
Well, I am married with a Greek man, so I was pregnant. We were living in Turkey, and I was reading about these things, how in multicultural families, if you stay in one of the partner's country, then it becomes the dominant culture. And so we decided to go to a neutral country where we can adapt easily. And my husband had the idea that Irish people are the Mediterranean people of North. Well, and he wasn't wrong. I think Irish people are quite friendly and warm people. So we had the crazy decision of coming to Ireland. It's a totally different landscape for us. And so he's a mechanical engineer. He's working in Galway. So this
Fantastic.
is how we end up in Galway.
Do you know, I love that. I love finding out why people go where they go. And I've lived in other countries around the world, and there's always different reasons, but I've never heard that as a reason. So that's fantastic to hear. So, Gizem, I was delighted to meet recently through the Network Galway, which is a fantastic business support and network for women in business across Galway region. And I was excited to see some of the projects that you've done, because you have experience in hospitality and commercial, as well as residential architecture and interiors. So you might just talk us through some of your international projects.
Thank you. So as you said, I got my architectural training in Istanbul Technical University in architecture, and I started working as a design architect in one of the biggest firms in Turkey. And it was, and I found myself designing shopping malls. So that's was a very nice experience for me, because I was actually doing interiors of the shopping mall, even though I did design also some cinema facades and this kind of things. We were working with a Dutch investor, collaborating with a Turkish investor. It's Multi, maybe if people know about that, they are developing mall projects around Europe. And there was a Dutch architectural firm also. They were also checking our work, or let's say we were collaborating with them. So I had some Dutch influences also in my work. I like using colors, and I like modern lines a bit, So it was a very joyful start for me. And later on, I had this urge to have my master's, and I always had this question in mind. I'm a bit of a political person. I think all architects are, and I had a lot of concerns about government in Turkey. And I was just wondering some things about illegal housing. And I actually went to Iowa State and had a wonderful experience there with my professors. And I got a chance to work as a research assistant also on sustainable buildings. And I got exposed to anthropology thanks to my thesis chair, Professor Marwan Gandur. And I learned about cultural relativity and how, as architects, we are actually so much influenced by the culture that we are living. And this is something that many architects are actually aware but not aware, like it's good to put a name on it, like you design with what the society asks for you generally, but we also have this mission to open new horizons for the community, and so it was a nice experience for me. And then I came back to Turkey, worked in various places. I worked in small firms, big firms. I even worked in a municipality. I was just like so interested in finding out the limits of my profession. And I slowly, I always did design work, and then I slowly channeled that thing to hospitality projects mainly. I worked as a spa design consultant. Some people get confused. They think that I worked in a spa like a masseuse or something. I'm like, no, I am the person that is guiding the interior designers, how to design a spa, or like I was designing some hotel spas myself. And then I was also I was the architect in charge in some of the constructions. One of them is Sheraton in a southern region of Turkey called Adana, which was a great experience for me because I got to make an indoor swimming pool, like 3,000 square meters of really fine details. I learned a lot from that project, and then it unlocked me more opportunities in hospitality projects. I also did some yacht clubs, spas, and other places in Turkey, and I got to be like one of the main designers for Peninsula Hotel in Istanbul, which recently opened in a very big regional project called Galata Port, which has been developed for more than 4 years, I could say. It's really a piece of work that's building itself, consists 4 old buildings that's transformed into one of the luxury hotel brands. Peninsula is owned by Hong Kong and Shanghai Hotel Group. And there's a certain group of people that know these hotels because they have this famous buildings in Hong Kong, in Shanghai, and Beverly Hills. And now they are expanding in Europe. They first opened Peninsula in Paris. Now Istanbul open, and soon enough, Peninsula London will open. And it's also a very interesting project for curious people, I'm telling.
Very good. You would know you've had such a varied career, and I love that you bring it back to kind of that link with anthropology, because that doesn't surprise me at all. I believe architects, shelter is a fundamental human need. So of course it's going to reflect what you know, what and what you aspire to. So I think cultural relativity is probably the great way to term that. But when you're working across such a variety of projects, I would imagine there's a huge difference between, going into residential architecture as opposed to a cinema facade. So you as a designer, where are you most comfortable? Like, what's your ideal project?
My ideal project is the project that I can understand and communicate clearly with my clients. As long as we understand each other, I feel like I can design anything because, as I told you, I really have a very broad experience, and I also did very humble projects too. When I start working on my own, I was with a contractor that was doing regional redevelopments in Turkey, where they were demolishing some old apartments. They were renewing them, making them slightly taller, but like they were giving people a better place to live. And so I'm also very happy to be part of the design process. And I think that my education and my career give me the tools to handle different things. And I'm telling you, I'm also like very interested in graphic design. I just love design so much.
Fantastic. And what's your view of architecture in Ireland? And I know that's a very broad question, because it varies so much. But, what you've seen, and particularly you're based in Galway City, Galway has some of the oldest and most kind of iconic historical buildings. And my understanding is actually, I think Ireland, the Bank of Ireland is one of the oldest commercial buildings kind of as a bank that's still in use as a bank. It has been for many centuries. So there's some iconic buildings there, but most recently we have new buildings like Bonham Quay, which has absolutely transformed the dock, the docks there in Galway. So what's your opinion of Irish architecture that you've seen so far?
I think that new developments like that are really giving a fresh breath to Galway. I really feel like, every era has to produce its own architecture. There are really nice historical buildings, but we are living in 2023, and the technology and or understanding of buildings change a lot, or needs changed a lot. So it's really nice to see really contemporary and good examples in Galway. And I also find the old houses interesting. I like cottages so much. I think they are more interesting than the estates developed by contractors. I don't want them to get me wrong, but they're like single units, and they're so personal. And it also tells a lot about life in Ireland maybe a century ago, and I think there's something so romantic about those historical cottages. And I think that there's a lot to improve in general sense. I think if more people become house owners, we will see a huge shift in the faces of the houses, because when you rent a house, the amount of care that you can give to a house is limited. But when you own the house, you take care of it in a better way. So I think the government is also trying to help people own houses. So it is a nice initiative. I know that it's a very touchy topic in Ireland. Yeah. I don't want to get people frustrated or something, but I also like that there are like new schemes now to revitalize town centers, and these are all very good steps. It could be discussed if it's well enough, but at least the intention is good,
I think that's a really interesting observation that you make, and I've never thought about it before, but of course you're absolutely right. Because we've so many people renting who would love to own their own home, and it is so disheartening that they're paying so much more in rent than they would be to buy that exact home. It's such a point of frustration. Previously in Ireland, like up until the last 2 decades, people were renting while they saved to buy their own home. So they would be living in a property that cost less to rent than it would to mortgage their own home. But now we have this crazy situation where people are spending almost double, 1.5 times to almost double what it would cost to pay the mortgage to service the same property, which is, it's a real sign of dysfunction in our market. But I think it's interesting that you point out that if those people were able to buy those homes, that would change how they look, because of course it would, because people would be able to unlock the potential of these homes because it would be theirs. So you've recently started your own interior design and architecture practice here in Galway. Are you actively trying to target clients who might be looking for those schemes you mentioned there with the government, like the for the dereliction and vacancy homes? Because we know there's a grant of up to 30,000 for properties that have been vacant for more than 2 years, and that can increase by a further 20,000, so up to 50,000 for derelict properties. Now, I am of the opinion that those grants should be higher, especially for dereliction, because some of them involve new, particularly if you're on the outskirts of town, it might involve entirely new septic systems or connections and things like that. But is that the type of work that you would be excited about taking on?
Well, of course, it depends on what how I will start it, because sometimes you complete a project and then that becomes an example and people see it, and you start doing that kind of projects, whatever it is. I am really open-minded, but like I think that I will be more comfortable with let's say doing interior design for commercial buildings or hospitality buildings, or like residential buildings that don't require me to especially work with a surveyor or an engineer, but of course, if I need to work, I will just collaborate, because I think most of those vacant homes need a reconstruction of they need some rebuilds, and of course, I understand what you're asking. My target is, like, I have a lot of experience in hospitality, in hotels and spas and like office buildings and or retails. I also did interiors. I like in residential interiors. So I don't know. I have to see the market really. I'm getting slowly familiar. And thank you for asking me this question. I have to think about it also.
Well, no, I mean, look, when you're starting a business, it's exciting, and the opportunities. There's lots of potential. But again, as I mentioned at the start of the interview, you have so much training and you've such a wide variety of work in your portfolio that actually it allows you to pick a place where it might even be a case that you're most comfortable, but maybe that you feel that you can bring a passion to. So, for example, if you're taking on hospitality, it sounds like you've done some very high-end or luxurious work. Arguably, there is a market for new commercial developments, new hospitality developments in Galway that might be on the luxurious side, because actually a lot of the hotel development that's happening right now is in Dublin City. We're not seeing as much in our other regional cities. So have you a pipeline of work? Have you started talking to project owners about potential work?
Well, I think that I haven't talked with anyone yet, but I think that I'm at the right place right now. By being part of Network Galway, I am slowly increasing my network, let's say improving my connections. I will think about this suggestion. But let me tell you this, there is something also nice about redesigning vacant homes, and I'll tell you what, because as first it helps with the housing crisis, but there is something also very sentimental about old homes. There were like some families living there maybe a century ago, maybe 20 years ago, I don't know, and they had some memories in those houses. I got I also became part of some restoration projects in Turkey as a student, not in my professional life, but like I did some internships. They were supported by EU. And I'm telling you, we did this project for a family which migrated to Turkey from Greece when we had a population exchange after the World War. And when the restoration project finished, when that family came from all over the world, some members were in the States, and they were crying when they saw their old house that they grew up. And I was also crying, as part of the restoration team, to see people's reconnection with the house that they grew up. It's a beautiful thing, but like for the hotels, I have to, like you said, I have to reach out to some people.
Very good. When you talk about bringing old homes back into life, yes, there's a huge sentimental element to that. But actually, as our conversation is increasingly turning towards the national housing conversation and globally turning towards sustainability, then actually there's a huge sustainability benefit if you can make work a fabric that already exists. Definitely. I mean, have you started exploring some of the sustainability initiatives that are in use in Ireland? Because actually, there is certainly some criticisms that our targets for net zero are not ambitious enough. So I don't know how you feel about that. But have you been involved in any sustainability work?
Here in Ireland, I just had my sustainability research in personal extent, and I used it for a little competition project that I joined, but I haven't got to meet with a client or something that required me to look into this. But like from my research, I know that there are a lot of funds out there to implement some design features that will increase the energy rating of the houses. And I think it's a great thing to have it out there. And I think like heat pumps or even solar panels, many people don't think that you can put solar panels in Ireland, but still they provide a valuable hot water for domestic use, and wind is also an incredible source, especially in Galway. We have so much wind. I think it is a waste not to use it. It's I think the more people would see implementation of sustainable design elements in their neighborhoods, they will have the courage to get it themselves. But you need to maybe have some pilot projects in each neighborhood, it's a part of marketing after all. People would see and they're like, okay,
Yeah, and to be fair, the government has made lots of grants available towards this. And by the way, you make a really good point about maybe some misconceptions around solar panels in Ireland, or in past decades, that people did think that Ireland was not the right place for them. And actually, having lived in Spain, in the mountains of Spain, where we had whole mountains covered in these giant solar parks, which made sense. Whereas actually, I'm not sure if people are familiar that advances in technology mean that solar isn't just taking energy from the sun, it's taking it from daylight. So actually, they're a great source here in Ireland. But you're right, there's so much more that could be done. And I think maybe we're only starting that now, but it is going to require the state supports and grants to be able to help people to access these technologies, which of course we hope we do. Gizem, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing your plans with us. It's very exciting. How can people get in touch with you?
Well, they can get in touch with me through my social media accounts or my web page, which is my name actually. If they can remember that or see it in your websites, they can.
Well, remind people of your website there, the website address.
Okay, so my web address is www.gizemakdogan.com, which is my name, gizemakdogan.com. And I just want to briefly tell them this. I know that in Ireland, people are trying to do something on their own because of sometimes limited resources. Sometimes I talk with some business owners, they are not using a designer, which is like, come on, you have a business, it's your brand identity, you have to work with a designer. And I just want to remind people that it makes a lot of difference when you work with a designer. I want to briefly tell that they would learn about their project costs. They would know about how the project would look like. They will have a better estimate of their timeline, and they would have more options in terms of suppliers and their material selection. Plus, they will have a professional who can take the nasty work of coordinating different tradesmen and consultants. So I think that just want to remind people that they should take care. They should take advantage of the designers because what they're trained for.
I think that's very compelling. You're setting out the business case for having a designer on your next project. So absolutely. Thank you so much for doing that, because it was an absolute pleasure to chat to you today. And that's all we've time for today. So my thanks to the producer, Carol Tallon, and to the podcast production team at Hear Me Roar Media. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe to the podcast and check out all of our other real estate and construction shows on iPropertyRadio. Before we go, we'd like to give a special word of thanks to our sponsor, Place Engage, a data-driven platform for more successful public consultation and community engagement for your next development project. So thank you, Place Engage, for supporting our podcast and making these conversations happen. And thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you on the next episode of Breaking Ground on iPropertyRadio.